This is the final step in setting up this the title block template. We're going to be adding in dimensions. What I'd like to do is kind of do an experiment and kind of show you what the potential for these dimensions are at the default setting and why we need to change them. Up along the top, the menu at the top, there's a dimension menu, a pull down menu that has different options, linear, aligned, all the way down to radial dimensions, which are probably more common when we get into circles. The linear is what we're going to kind of focus on. If I click on that, it does a first point of dimension. I'm going to just kind of do the rough outline of the paper, and then it asks for the second. And you'll notice that the measurement is correct. It is decimal, so that's one thing that we want to change, and the size of it. Once we get into more complex drawings, and I'm going to show you a quick example of what yours will look like, if we try to dimension this piece, it will get very busy quickly, and you can see obviously that the dimensions are way too large for this size of a drawing. So we're going to change that to fit appropriately. Okay, so to begin doing this, we're going to use or go into the dimension, and at the bottom the dimension properties. Like I said, we are using the default setting. These are all of the properties of the entire document or the file that we're working in, so we can modify it, kind of customize it, individual files. But for this one, we're going to change the dimension. So you click on the little plus sign here, and you get the dimension or the properties of this default. Since we're only going to have one dimension style here, we're going to leave it as default, but we want to change it to fractions. Arial font is fine. The precision this is just kind of a random example. What we want to do is, although most of the dimensions won't be anything less than 1 1/8, we're going to go down to 64th. And the reason for that is if we do have a mistake, the dimensions will show us exactly where those mistakes are. The font size, we're going to go back to that 1/8 of an inch, so 0.125. The gap, most of these you may not understand at this point, and we'll go over those later, but just setting these up, I'm going to change this to the 0.2, extension beyond 0.2, offset 0.2, center mark, we're going to go 0.25. The arrow, the length of the arrow, we can bring this down to 0.2, 0.2, and leader arrows 0.2 also, and click OK. Now we'll do an example of what the measurements look like, and you'll notice that it fits much more accurate. All of these should be 1 inch, overall 3. One thing that I have noticed here is that the gap between the text in this line is still a little bit too large, so what I want to do is go back in and change that. We're going to make that a little bit smaller. So back to the default properties, and what I'm seeing here is the extension line or gap here. We want to make that 0.1. And click OK, and that drops it down, and it's much closer to that line, so they're not kind of floating away. So that looks good. So eventually we'll put these dimensions on our block puzzle. So go ahead and save that, and we're done.